Well, Internet folks, we're back, and we're working on the 1970 Pontiac LeMans. We recently returned back from Plates and 28s down in Cincinnati at Edgewater Motorsports Park. We took my 1970 455 Pontiac LeMans street car down there to compete in the 13.0 index class, and god darn it, we did pretty well. If you watched that previous video, Uncle Bob was my pilot of Street Racing Channel and Old Man's Garage fame. Engine builder extraordinaire and apparently also a professional hot shoe, and he did a fantastic job in the car. He ended up going a great job through the practice rounds, ended up going 4 rounds through the actual competition, got a little cute in the semifinals and ended up losing that race. But it was still a fantastic weekend. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. As you can currently probably see, it is wearing a set of slicks in the rear. This is a street car in every way of meaning it. It is a stock compression, 9.5-to-1, 455, 336 rear end gears. It's got power steering, power brakes, air conditioning, all the things. This is a street car as street car can be. I drive it all the time. But I got to get those slicks off this thing, and I got to get it inside to do that. So I'm going to get this thing fired up. We're going to put it on the rack. We're going to pull off those slicks. We're going to put my street wheels and tires on it. I'm going to go front to back to make sure everything looks good. We didn't knock anything loose or damage anything. And then I also need to have a conversation with you guys about what I'm going to do with this car next. What's the plan? What's the possibility? And what I really, really should do or shouldn't do with this car. So let me get this thing fired up, get it in on the rack. We'll go from there. Oh, hey, honey. Been a while. I will also say this is the first time this car has ever run on 87 octane. We ended up stealing about 10 gallons of fuel out of Bill's generator fuel tanks to be able to get enough ballast in this car to be able to slow it down. And the car is probably not completely happy on 87. We've run it literally from the moment we dynoed this motor to this weekend on 93 octane. Looks like I've got about 3/4 of a tank of gas in this thing, so it's probably best that I go ahead and run this fuel out as fast as possible and then top back up with some good juice. By the way, also no choke hooked up on the Quadrajet, so it takes a minute to make her happy. Good enough. Ain't she a beaut, Clark? Tell you what, you know, Bob, you really didn't do much of with the burnout there, bud. There's not a whole lot of tire back here. Not much at all. Well, it's also possibly the street tires tend to melt off quite a lot more than the slicks do. You can tell this guy is crushed. We have quite a lot of weight in the back of this thing just to be able to slow this car down, which is something I never imagined I was going to need to do. You put 2 tree bodies in the back of that trunk, or your street tires, because street car. Real tight. As you can see in the rear here, this car is as factory and original old school suspension as you can get. These are non-boxed rear control arms. There is no rear sway bar on this car. It has KYB non-adjustable, just regular old school shocks. Is drum brake in the rear. This entire car is old school. Still has the factory Pontiac 10 bolt in it. We did do a posi upgrade with a 336 rear end gear, but otherwise this car is pretty much as bone stock and original as you can possibly get. Some opportunities are certainly back here in the rear if we wanted to go to a different control arm with a provision for a rear sway bar to help that rear end hook up a little bit better. That's certainly an option. So one of the things that's kind of curious about this car is it ran a lot better this past weekend than we really expected it to. When we ran it in mid-July up at Pontiac Nationals, it ran pretty consistently almost a 13 flat all day long. Exact same slicks, exact same setup, exact same car. Other than the fact that we've recently dropped the fuel tank, which is apparently the very first time this tank has ever been dropped, and replaced the fuel sock and the sending unit. It seems like it woke the car up quite a bit because we ended up going about 4/10 faster than what we expected to be, and that's a lot, especially when you're bracket racing. So the question really is, what do we do? Do we keep this car as it is and don't do anything to speed the car up, or do we do a little bit that we can increase the speed of the car and not necessarily decrease the drivability of the car? Because we can. Because there's certainly some easy wins that we can get that make the car faster. The problem is, it would kind of make us too fast for the 13.0 class, and I think maybe not competitive for the 11.5 class, because I think the step between making it, say it's a 12.5 car now, to make it an 11.5 car is a pretty big step, and I feel like it maybe would ruin the actual car. I don't know. I do also run these trim rings here because the center bore spacing on my Riddler wheels is different than the center bore spacing on these snowflakes that are the proper ones. So I do need to make sure I pull those off, and I need to hold on to these because they go with those Riddler wheels when I'm running slicks. Easy little pry off situation here. Just a little spacer to make sure that the wheel gets properly centered when you mount it on the hub. Alright. I do also really love the way these things look with these snowflakes on them. I wasn't kind of sure how much I was going to love these wheels before when I put them on this car. However, I think it totally works. Also, I don't know if you can see this or not, how I have the camera. How about that? Trans Am dual tips. Yeah, buddy. It's a kit from Pipes. This entire exhaust, by the way, for those of you who are interested, is a set of Flowtech long tube headers, X pipe, and 2.5-inch pipes from Pipes, P-Y-P-E-S. This is their Violator set that's on this car, and it is one of the most signature pieces of this car is the way that it plays that exhaust tune. Everybody loves it. It is, mwah. Though I probably am also losing a little bit of power because this is a 2.5-inch exhaust, so I may be dropping a little bit of power there as well. You can see there's a little bit of rubbing on this sidewall where it was rubbing against the inner fender. Now I did beat this a little bit with a hammer and a bat to be able to clearance this inner fender well as much as we possibly could, but because we crushed the suspension down so far, it did rub a little bit when it fully squatted as it took off. Really? Hey, focus. Hello? Thank you. So, what would you do? What makes sense? Now, obviously, I've got a lot of irons in the fire. I've got a lot of projects moving forward. If you're not familiar with me, I've got a lot going on. I've got the Pontiac 350 HO build that's going for my 1968 Le Mans that's outside. I've got another Le Mans, my 1971, which is outside, which is just a factory restoration type of thing. It's going to be a Pontiac 350. But it's not a race car by any means. However, the 68 is probably going to be kind of race car and will probably run a 13 flat, I would think, with a pretty stout 350 Pontiac motor in it. So, does it make sense? What do I do? Should I do some things to this car? Because invariably, I could make it a better car. But would I make it too fast for what I want to compete with, or what we want to compete with? What would you do if this was your car? What would you do? All the steering on this car, the suspension on this car, other than the shocks, are old school stuff. I never did anything with this, so every bit of this is all old school. The front sway bar is a little tiny guy that came from the factory. Everything else is original as it came. And doing some upgrades with the suspension side of things and the steering side of things would get me more modern suspension geometry with some caster built into the control arms, and it would give me some adjustability. Thanks, Mom, for ruining my monologue. But it would give me some more modern capability as far as suspension setup goes. I can get some better caster into it. I can replace all my steering bits and get things a little bit tighter up front. I don't really need to get into the world of bump steer because there's not enough front end travel really for this car to worry about the toe on lift. And this car doesn't really squat that bad. But maybe that's something I can go ahead and toss on the thing when I did it. You know, there's a lot of options that are available in the aftermarket. But do I need them? Do I want to do them? Now, I should probably just do bushings and things that are worn out and are old anyway. And that's kind of where you get into my trap, where you're like, well, while we're in there, why go with the factory old school stuff when for just a little bit more money, we're going to be there already. Just put in the nice new shiny bits. I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm terrible at this part about owning cars because I 98% of the time just go ahead and upgrade them even if I don't really need them. I'm looking for advice. Help. She's about as old school gets, other than my fancy power brake situation over here. Still AC, still power steering. You know, this is a street car. This is legitimately a street-driven street car. And yes, if you look real closely, you can see a quadrijet under the hood. Yes, a quadrijet race car. Now, I am planning on probably replacing that accessory drive setup with the V-belts and replacing it with a CVF kit with a serpentine belt system. I will also be doing air conditioning so I can maintain having air conditioning in this car because I do drive it a lot, especially in the summer. Being able to do power tour and drag and drive events is key to me, and I'd like to be able to keep that. The 455 that's in it's still pretty healthy, but I may pull it out just to go through it to make sure it's good because it's been like 6 or 7 years since we put that motor in that car. And it's probably got a lot more than 10,000 miles on it. And some of them have been hard quarter-mile passes. So, I don't know. I've got a lot of things that are up in the air. I got a lot of things in my mind, and I really am honestly very curious about what you guys want me to do, what you guys think I should do, because ultimately, we're kind of a team here, because I need to make stuff that you want to see, and you need to be able to watch what I watch, because it helps me pay for what I'm doing. With that in mind, I do want to say a massive thank you to everybody who has watched the video from the Plates and 28s and who has watched everything so far this month through the entire month of October. I am donating every single bit of revenue that this channel makes to the victims of Hurricane Helene in western North Carolina, and I will be personally driving down there in the next week, beginning first week of November, to personally give those monies away. Now, I am not going to be doing this through a organization. I'm not going to be doing it through any kind of a charity type of thing. This is going to be me physically personally going down there and directly impacting lives, and doing it with the money that you have helped me generate by watching these videos. So massive thank you to all of you guys who have watched these videos. We have generated over $550 as of the filming of this video right now. I think by the end of the month we're going to be over like $650, which would be absolutely awesome. And huge thank you to my wonderful viewer who matched the revenue that I am making off of this channel and stopped by the shop today to hand me a fistful of cash to be able to double the amount of revenue that I'm making off this channel and truly go make a massive impact in people's lives in that area. I've spent a large portion of my time, I don't know if you can hear it from me, but I've spent a lot of time in eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, northwest Georgia. That whole area is kind of where I'm historically from, and those people's lives have been completely upended with the storms, and there's going to be no end of need in the anywhere near future. So I'm going to go down there and I'm going to directly impact that area. I'm going to do my very best to do that, but you guys watching what we do here and what I'm doing with this channel have enabled me to be able to do that kind of thing. I've talked about this in previous videos about the fact that one of the things I love most about YouTube is the fact that it allows us to build a community, and I have to say that I am unbelievably impressed and proud of and thankful for the community that we have built so far on this channel. All of you folks that are watching what I'm doing and that are cheering me on as we go. I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if it wasn't for you, and you guys are enabling me to do that. So thank you guys also very much. Honestly, that's where I'm going to end this. What do I do with this car? What should I do with it? Let me know what you think I should do. Do I do nothing? Change the oil and drive it? Leave it alone? Leave it old school and don't touch it? Do I do a couple of upgrades to be able to do some modern handling and a little bit of upgrades that then wouldn't necessarily affect speed, though traction would certainly help? Or do I get crazy and I do something serious with it? That 455 is being held back massively by that little Edelbrock dual plane intake manifold that's on there. There's a lot of locked away potential that's in this car that I didn't bother to unlock because I was building this as just a street driving car. I had zero intention of racing this thing before when I first originally built this car. But life changes, and now we're where we are. So let me know what you think. I love you. Thanks for being here. This is Automotive Adventures with Austin, my own little personal corner of the YouTube internets, where I do work on my own projects and get, enjoy my own stuff. Nights and weekends and off hours and that kind of thing. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, click on that subscribe button. It'd be great to have you here. I don't publish on any kind of a schedule. It just kind of happens as it happens. I've got a whole lot of toys and I play with them as often as I can and I work on them as often as I can. So I hope to see you on another video in the near future. Otherwise, take care. Hope you have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.